All right, yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Executive Show. I'm your host, Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. We are still pretty early, first week August. And fantasy football drafts coming up every weekend. The big fantasy football expo coming up this weekend. If you want to get involved in draft with me, there's some links from the FFWC, the Fantasy Football World Championship. They got their mock draft contest. They have their mid-stakes contest, which you can compete against me and beat the Fantasy Exec League. For you high rollers that want to really win some bread, you can go on out there to Las Vegas, or you can draft online in the Fantasy Football World Championship high stakes event. So go ahead and hit that link. The promo code is exec will take you there. Today I want to bring on my boy from Yahoo Fantasy Sports. It's my man Dan Titus. Dan, what's good with you, brother?
What's good, Corey? This has been a long time coming, man. Definitely been following from early days. Wanted to actually give you your flowers before you get into some fantasy football stuff, man. Like, there wasn't a lot of brothers doing betting, fantasy, anything. And you were on pretty early. So, I'm here for people that paved the way like you. So I appreciate that, man.
No, definitely appreciate that, and good chance to have a chance to get to talk to you. And let's just start there. You know what I'm saying? My journey really, I was never really, like, the goal was not fantasy sports.
Yeah.
The goal was just sports. You know what I'm saying? Like, my first love really in sports broadcasting was this. You may not know this, but Mike Breen used to be the anchor, the update anchor for a very popular show on WFAN back in the day called Imus in the Morning.
Imus
went on.
I remember Imus.
Yeah, he went on to to torpedo his career many years later. But Imus. So that was it. And then, I started playing fantasy football in like 2003. And I had a homeboy. Well, yeah, I had a homeboy. My man, Rel. We would spend hours and hours and hours just on the phone talking about fantasy football. And then when I got to Sirius XM the next year and they started the Fantasy Sports Channel, I was like, oh, all right, cool. This is where it's at. I was a producer on that channel, but I always had dreams of rocking the mic. I always felt like if I was a dope MC, you know what I'm saying? And here and there, and here we go. We ended up here. But I'm from Harlem, New York. Where are you from? Born and raised?
Yeah, so I'm from Philly. So I think that was another thing that always kind of drew me into like what you were doing, because I was like, I mean, we're not that far. I was actually just listening to Bobby Portis talk about his experience on USA, and he said that someone asked him a question about Anthony Edwards, and Anthony Edwards considers him the OG, and he's like, I'm not even 30 yet, so how am I an OG? I know we're not that much in difference in age, so like as much as I like call you the OG, you're really like we're the same age bracket, like we probably grew up on the same hip hop and all that. Yep. So I think I just resonated with the fact that you're from Harlem, and then. Man, just trying to just talk about sports first and foremost. And then once it kind of progressed and then it got into fantasy, I started playing fantasy in 2001, 2002. Check my receipts of my Yahoo profile. Like I've been doing this for a minute, man. So, we was in the game around the same time. So, I just been crazy fan of it. And then I didn't realize you could actually kind of make a career out of talking about a game within a game. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of. You got to go through some free 99s for a while before you actually get paid to do this. But, eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So you're in the Yay area now?
Yeah, I'm in the Yay area. My previous life brought me out here. Then I started a family. So now, like, I'm seems like I can't leave the Bay now. My wife's born and raised here. She ain't finna to go to the East Coast and the cold and all that. Humidity. No. Yeah, I'm stuck here now.
And speaking of humidity, like I said, I'm from Harlem, but I live in South Carolina now. I moved down here about 2 years ago, post-pandemic. Son, you can't even go outside, bro. It's like I spend most of my day in the house. If I'm outside, I'm throwing on, like, you know what I'm saying, like a little hood to keep the sun from beating
that sun off,
you know what
man.
I'm saying? So definitely no joke, you know what I'm saying? But the Yay area, that's cool. And you made your way out there. How did you get to Yahoo Fantasy? Because really, I think a lot of us, the first game provider that really was free, I think Yahoo was free before ESPN was Yahoo, and a lot of us got our fantasy football started Yahoo. So to get the opportunity to work in the mainstream media for Yahoo, how did that come about?
Grind and hustle, man. Relentless grind. And it kind of started like I had to make a decision, like, how am I really want to like go about this? And start out with me quitting my job. That wasn't an easy thing to do. Fortunately, my wife held me down for the 2.5 years I was trying to figure this all out.
Nice.
So I started out working for Fantasy Pros. I went out to the FSGA conference, didn't pay for it. I just posted up at the bar, talked to people, kind of got a sense of like
what year was
like.
FSGA year? What FSGA year was this? Was you posted at the bar?
This was March 2020, February 2020.
Got it.
So right before the pandemic actually hit, I was like, you know what? I think I can at least try. I'm not really a writer, but like I know how to write. Like I went to college, so let me try this out. So I started doing fantasy basketball for Fantasy Pros, and then the bubble happened. Basketball stopped, all sports stopped, and I was like, let me just keep writing. So I just kept doing it, trying to find every news piece or article that I could think of, just to kind of keep the flow of thought going. And then kind of graduated up to doing football for Fantasy Pros, and then after that, I just tried to do something different, and I started a podcast doing fantasy basketball, did some stuff for the fantasy doctors, just injury kind of updates, to trying to learn different skills outside of just writing. So I started doing the video thing. And then next thing I know, I started producing my own podcast. And then once you kind of get all these things into your own authority and like your own control, it kind of just spearheaded after that. So after that, I took a job at Action Network doing a production and got my podcast picked up by Blue Wire, which then got bought out by Action Network. So things just started falling into place.
Nice.
And then after that, luck. A lot of my career in this space, at least, has been luck and opportunity, just being in the right place at the right time. And then also, making sure that I'm showcasing that I can do everything, not just one thing. Because I think that's really important. So then I wound up chopping up with Andy Behrens at a conference. And next I know, he put me in contact with the head of fantasy over there. And then next thing you know, they were like, hey, we need a fantasy basketball guy. And that's where I'm at now. I know we're coming in to talk fantasy football. I still do that. Like I play fantasy football, basketball, baseball. Like I do it all, man. I'm a degen at heart. So at this point, man, I'm just trying to do whatever I can to stay gainfully employed.
I feel you on that one. What's your man, the connect at Yahoo? What's his name? Jason?
Yeah, Jason Klobachin.
Yes, Jason. I haven't never had a chance to meet Jason yet, but we have shared some emails before. Now, the year when you met Behrens at the FSGA, where was the FSGA at?
That was that vague? No, it was Detroit 2022.
I remember the Detroit joint. You know what I'm saying? I didn't make it out there, but the only time I've actually been to the Bay Area was to go to the FSGA. This was the FSGA. This is a while ago, so I'm gonna date myself here.
FSTA.
Matter of fact, it was the FSTA. Yeah, this is the FSTA in San Francisco, the summer of 2014.
Okay.
Now, only time I've ever been to the Bay Area, right? And it's two things I noticed. Apparently, marijuana was fully legal in 2014. Fully legal.
I moved out in 2011. That was a revelation for me too. I was like, "What? It's like this out here?"
Yeah, like as soon as you come out the door, as soon as you get out, you leave the airport, and it's like, "What's going on here?" You know what I'm saying? And then once I left the airport, I never saw a police officer again. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, "Okay, I see why everything goes here." But son, the panhandling was next level. So I come from an era when I remember pre-hip hop Atlanta, like before Atlanta stole the hip hop scene.
Yeah,
Atlanta was a panhandling. Son, they used to like when I talk about aggressive panhandlers, the kind of panhandlers that touch you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in your face.
That's what you had in Atlanta.
You gotta get them out of the way to get to where you're going.
Thank you, son. The panhandlers in San Fran who touch you, they be in your face. I'm like, I'm from Harlem, son. I'm like, yo.
You know what I'm saying? Fall back.
Yeah, for real, son. Like, you know what I mean? I ain't afraid to fight a junkie. You know what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there. Speaking of my league, the first league that I ever participated in, this league called the Empire. I think this is the 20 years of the Empire coming up this year. I've never won this league. Now, I've won all kind of fantasy football
20 years and never took home the chip,
and I never won my home league.
Crazy motivation, though.
Crazy. This is it's unbelievable. I have to make a sleeper. I have to make a keeper decision. What we do for our keepers is we can keep a player drafted the year before post round 5. So round 5, a later draft pick from the year before, or somebody you pick up off the waiver wire who was not drafted, and that's who was not drafted in those rounds. Well, mainly you got him off the waiver wire. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Then let me tell you who I had to make the choice from, and ask you what you would do: Chris Olave or Tony Pollard.
Ooh.
12 team league, full PPR, but you don't have the full roster where you start 3 wides. You only it's kind of an old school where you start 2 running backs, 2 wides, a flex, and a tight end.
Okay.
You don't have to start that third receiver. But yeah, those are my options: Tony Pollard and Chris Olave.
If you're leaning, for me, in a 12-team PPR, I think Tony Pollard's got to be the one. I think you can get a wide receiver later. Tony Pollard is right now going first round, second round. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we're getting that kind of draft capital that late. And I don't, which round are you getting him in?
No, I get him. You keep him. So your first pick,
okay, as long as he's after just as long as he's after the 5th round. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah, I would lean towards Pollard because you can build off of that. Because now that you already got Pollard, I will go straight, 2 wide receivers right after that, and you're going to get 2 very good wide receivers. So, I mean, you might be able to get a Garrett Wilson. You might be able to get like CeeDee Lamb. I mean, there's definitely a lot of combinations you can get there on the turn that I think is probably worth it, considering the problem I have with drafting a running back really high is that there's not that many that you can trust that have been paid, don't have a lot of mileage, are young enough, and in an explosive offense enough. And I think Tony Pollard checks all those boxes. He has limited competition too. So,
and then he has that pass catching ability, which I think is absolutely important. You talk about those running backs, the ones that's going in the first round for the most part. Even though you never can predict the draft, and drafts do differ. But CMC goes in the first, Eckler goes in the first, Bijan goes in the first, and then Barkley goes in the first. I am not touching Barkley. I think he is due for a regression this season. To be honest, of these 3 first-round backs, I like Bijan the best. And I know we haven't seen Bijan yet, but I'm like, this guy, if he is what they say he is in Arthur Smith's offense, this could be a 2,000 yard from scrimmage.
That's the thing about Bijan that I like the most, is that their head coach is just running the ball. Like, he's already said it. Desmond Ridder might throw a little bit more, but if there's one Falcons player on my roster, it's probably Bijan. I don't have any shares yet, but it's just a 3-down opportunity. And Cordarrelle Patterson might take a couple of touches away. Tyler Algier is still there, but they spent that draft capital for the guy that they want to be that workhorse back. He's a rookie. He's going to get all the totes, you know what I'm saying? Like, in an offense that I feel like should be improved with Desmond Ridder now having a full offseason as the full-time quarterback. They're going to be better. I'd stay the hell away from Kyle Pitts. Bijan Robinson and Drake London are probably the only 2 Falcons I would want to roster. But in terms of RB security, I'd rather go with Bijan over, I'm not going to say Eckler just because I think that they're going to still be very good. I just like the volume, and there's not any kind of monetary contractual situation that he has to deal with like Saquon. So I think you're lower risk actually going with Bijan than like a Saquon.
Let me tell you, you mentioned Cordarrelle Patterson. I remember this is years ago. So this is the year Cordarrelle got drafted. I was working at Sirius XM, and I had to. So my program director was like, "Listen, instead of coming after you do the Roto Expert show, I want you to head down to South Street Seaport for the NFL Play 60. You're going to go down there. You're going to meet with the host. You're going to record. You got this is the audio recorded. You got the audio recorder. The host is going to record some interviews. And I remember interviewing Cordarrelle Patterson. Listen to the draft class: Cordarrelle Patterson, Eddie Lacy, and Traquan, and what was it? Laquan Treadwell.
Yes.
That was look. Cordarrelle Patterson is doing good, bro. To still be in the league.
Out there. He's still out there, and it's crazy because I don't know if they ever played on the Vikings together. Treadwell and I think they did. Treadwell and Patterson. But the thing about Patterson was he was always like this explosive kick returner. Yeah. And every time he had the ball in his hands, he was like that Devin Hester. Like, something just happened. So I love that the Falcons figured out we can utilize him in different ways. And now with the modern NFL where they're getting all these wide receivers getting these carries as well, I just think it makes the offense so much more explosive and dynamic. He doesn't need a lot of touches to still be effective. Cordarrelle Patterson should still probably be drafted as a late round flyer just in case, Bijan gets hurt.
Definitely best ball because of his ability to break those big plays. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Agree with that.
You know who the host was that I was with that day?
Rick. Who was the host back then of Sirius XM? I don't even know.
Kay Adams.
Really?
She's done pretty well. She's done pretty well for herself too, huh?
yeah, I'd say so. Damn, for real. I didn't know she was on Sirius XM for a minute. That's what's up.
Yeah. So she used to do shows on Sirius XM. Yeah, that's where she started at. Was Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
And then it was just to the moon after that.
And then it was just to win. None of us have ever. Nobody else went there.
That's another stratosphere, bro. I don't even know if I want that stratosphere, to be honest with you.
There you go.
That's crazy.
You mentioned Kyle Pitts. So here's what the deal is, right? I love Kyle Pitts. I still love the talent. I still love the player. If it happens this year, it's going to happen on somebody else's team, though. Where are you at on Kyle Pitts?
Same thing, man. Like, the amount of routes that he just doesn't run enough routes. Like, I don't know why they don't factor him in the offense, but he's just not a heavily targeted player. And right now, the training camp reports are he's wearing a knee brace and all that. Like, I'm not too concerned about that. It's just for where he's going in drafts, like, I'll pass. I'd rather wait for like Greg Dulcich way later than that. I'll wait for there's just other targets that I feel like will be more effective in terms of actually getting the ball thrown to him and actually producing something. Because I think Kyle Pitts is this Twitter. I don't know. Twitter's just infatuated with him because he's talented, crazy athletic, and he's super fast, and he was great in college. But sometimes you got to get into a different scenario and a situation to be effective. And I think he needs another team, as you stated.
The way that we talk about Kyle Pitts is the way that we talked about Evan Ingram, and it's the way that we talked about OJ Howard.
Yeah. And OJ, unfortunately, he never really panned out. But Evan Ingram, whew, and I see his ADP
He finally hit Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
Last year when nobody was on him.
No one was on him. He was an easy waiver guy for you. And then, like, so now I'm wondering, like, I just did a write-up for an ADP analysis on Yahoo. His ADP is falling faster than anyone in the tight end position. I think he's down by like 7 spots, which I'm assuming is because Calvin Ridley's back. But, like, what are you reading into that? Like, are you still comfortable drafting Evan Ingram as like your tight end 1?
Yeah, I would still throw Evan Ingram out there as a tight end 1. I don't have no problem doing that. I think, listen, it really depends. Strategies can differ from year to year and from roster to roster, from player to player, and even from roster to roster. You know what I'm saying? So the way I look at Evan Ingram, I don't want to get too low for the most part. I don't want to play tight end chicken and miss out on Ingram. And then I'm into that what's your man from Tennessee, the Okonwu kid.
Yeah, you're in the Congo.
Yeah, I don't want to be in that range. I'm probably not going to be in the Travis Kelce area.
Right.
Because, it's hard to say that too. Okay, where are you at on stacking?
Best ball definitely makes sense, but for redraft, I'm definitely down for it. Like, one of the stacks that I primarily get is Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert. You pay for the third for Jalen, and then, I'm saying, you can get Dallas Goedert probably in the 7th-ish range, which you're not going, completely down, missing out on all the elites. But I think that Goedert can easily compete to be a top 4 tight end right behind TJ Hawkinson potentially. So that's a stack that I love. The other ones, it's kind of hard to do it. Like, I guess you could do it to Deshaun Watson, David Njoku. I think that one would be kind of be interesting. Like, and you can get them both late if you decide to just pass on quarterbacks and tight ends. But after that, man, it's hard to stack some of those tight ends. Like, the Mahomes Kelce stack is just going to be so expensive that I don't know that I can. No,
that is. So
that's and even Lamar and Mark Andrews, same thing. Like, that's an expensive stack. You're gonna have to get both of them within like rounds 3 and 4, like probably back to back. Like,
and then so
basically to build your team around.
Yeah, it's tough to build your team when you have a quarterback and a tight end and you in the first 5 picks. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's tough. Like you said, you're going to need some help, and players, the draft boards are going to have to fall your way. Where are you at, though, curiously enough, on the Baltimore Ravens fantasy assets? So Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and then let's throw Beckham and Flowers into the mix as well. When I look at Baltimore, I like Andrews. I like Jackson. And then I love Dobbins, but I worry he was going to keep me up at night, right? And then Beckham and Flowers I'm warming up to. My thing with Baltimore is the wide receivers don't never develop. Bateman didn't develop, and this guy didn't develop, and that guy don't develop. So now they get Flowers. You bring in Beckham, Todd Monken, going to open it up a bit. How are you attacking Baltimore offense for fantasy?
I think you had it right. It was just Lamar, Mark Andrews, and then it just stops. The thing I have a problem with J.K. Dobbins, he's another year removed from the ACL injury, bad injury, but he looked good. He started to look better as the season wore on. The thing about Dobbins is, like, you're going to have to go RB heavy in order to draft him. Like, I think he'd be a solid RB2, but if you just decide to go wide receiver, tight end, or quarterback or something like that, and then you wind up with J.K. Dobbins as your number one, I think you're going to be in trouble. Because I don't know that I want to rely on him as my number one guy. Number two, I'm okay. But I'm also not going to go out of my way to, like, go reach for him either. Whereas, like, Mark Andrews, I'm cool with him drafting him in, like, the third or the fourth. Lamar Jackson, I'm cool, definitely good with him drafting third or the fourth round. Lamar Jackson is the guy that I think that I'd probably, if I want any Ravens, it'd probably be him, just because I think that he's going to be primed for a bounce back season. I think he's going to pass more. He's got more weapons. They never usually have a lot on the outside, but I think Odell Beckham is certainly a nice upgrade, and Rashad Bateman's eventually going to get out there. You still got Mark Andrews down the seams. Lamar Jackson's the one that's going to be the best fantasy asset out of anyone in Baltimore, and probably the main one that I want to invest in. Mark Andrews is probably going to be too expensive for me. Odell Beckham is super cheap, so you can get him late. He's like, his ADP is somewhere in the 115 range. I'd prefer him over Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman, I don't really know, because he's just still on the PUP list, and I feel like Beckham, if you're going to invest in a receiver, is probably him.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Bateman, I think I took him in a best ball. Like, you know how
that's
you
fine.
Get
that's fine. He could pop it at some point, right?
30-round draft. It's like round 18. And I'm like, I want to get off the damn computer. So I'm filling out my queue so I can go on auto pick. And Bateman's like the top of the queue. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm ready to go to bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like that's how it was. Let's go down the Beltway in Washington. I think it's interesting in Washington team. I think they can be a playoff team in the NFC this year. They're real good in the trenches. I think I'm probably higher on their quarterback than most people are. The head coach is a fraud, but he's a nice guy. You know what I'm saying?
Not after today. He's airing out everything, man. Like, keep that quiet. Like, why do you gotta call out? Not only did you bring in Eric Bieniemy, you stand for this man, and then, like, you're gonna say, like, oh, now the players are crying to me because he's too hard on them. Like, what? Why are you even releasing that into the public? Like, I don't know what Ron Rivera is doing.
Trying to save his job. Everything a coach do is calculated.
You're right. It's like, let me point the finger this way. Like, if it goes left, like I told you from the preseason. Yeah.
We just saw Sean Payton do something like that, right? But before we get to Sean Payton, the Washington running backs. Mm-hmm. Anything there? Because they keep saying, see, that's the thing. They keep telling us Brian Robinson, but my eyes keep saying no, Antonio Gibson.
Hey, PPR, especially Antonio Gibson, because another guy that you can get very late in drafts, because people are assuming, like, oh, Brian Robinson's going to take over as the workhorse back. He's going to get the goal line carries. But I'm more excited about the J.D. McKissick targets that are just all going to primarily go to Antonio Gibson. He's looked good in training camp. He's already got that role. He'll also be able to spell Brian Robinson, who came into the league with some injury concerns. So I'd prefer the cheaper version of the asset in Washington, and that's got to be Antonio Gibson. I'm not scared to draft him as, like, I think he could be a real solid RB2 flex possibly that you can get later in drafts, and it's going to be cheaper than Brian Robinson.
You an Eagle fan?
I am. Die hard. So that's why am like, am I gonna be like, But no, I actually really like Jahan Dotson, Penn State guy.
Dotson too, you know what I'm saying?
And if you're a believer in Sam Howell, like, I think he's gonna be able to, assuming he wins the starting job, he should. Like, I don't understand why Jacoby Brissett would, but him and Scary Terry are gonna be nice on the outside, and which is gonna be, that's the problem that I had with Washington last year, was like there was just so much turnover in that quarterback room that no one could really get their rhythm. It was Heineke, it was others. Then Howell came in last minute. Like, if he starts from day one, I like Scary Terry. I like Jahan Dotson because you get him a little bit later. And then obviously Antonio Gibson.
Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, both seasons last year that they would like to forget. Russell was there all year and was terrible. Then Deshaun Watson, I think the initial suspension was like what 4, 5, or 6 games, something like that. Then everybody's like, "Oh no!"
Give him
then
10.
it was
Give him 11.
exactly. Something was suspension porn. You know what I'm saying? What do you mean? I was like, "Relax, y'all." You know what I'm saying? Like a judge looked over this. But anyway, I digress. You know what I'm saying? But who do you think is more likely to bounce back this year? Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson?
Ooh, that's an interesting one because I'm looking at the coaching staff, right? Nathaniel Hackett's gone, thank God. You got Sean Payton, who's a quarterback guru. I don't care if it's, fixing Drew Brees or getting a late version of Russell Wilson or whatever he is.
Jameis
Winston too. The thing about Russ is kind of concerned about what's happening with them wide receivers. Tim Patrick tore his Achilles. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been able to stay on the field, even though he's got a great opportunity to be the man. Cortland Sutton's a year removed from it, tearing his ACL. Are there enough weapons to sustain Russ's fantasy value? Like, I almost lean towards Deshaun Watson, mainly because I know that he's gonna showcase that rushing ability that he didn't really get a chance to. He didn't have a full training camp. He obviously was sitting on the sideline holding the clipboard for like 3/4 of the season. I like the Deshaun bounce back more. And I think that the Cleveland Browns got better. They have Amari Cooper. Donovan Peoples-Jones is straight. They added Elijah Moore, who's been looking great in the slot in the training camp. And Nick Chubb's back there. So I like Deshaun Watson. And right now he's QB 11, right around Tua. I think that's fine. That means you can wait for a scrambling quarterback with upside. Like, I'll take that all day. Whereas Russell Wilson, I don't know that we're going to get that scrambling that we got in the past in Seattle. And he definitely doesn't have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett to throw to anymore.
Yeah, no doubt. He don't have those kind of weapons. Listen, I remember when I first saw Jeudy, I was at my cousin's house. I think we were watching college football, and I'm like, yo, who is that guy? And he just jumped off. Yeah, I mean, it just jumped off. But it hasn't translated to this point to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully this is the year right here. I'm a big Jerry Jeudy guy, super duper talented, but we haven't seen it come together at the professional level yet. Is this a crazy question to ask, or is it closer than you think? Which cook would you rather have, James or Dalvin?
Wherever Dalvin's going. I mean, hopefully Dalvin goes to the Miami Dolphins. I think that's like the best case landing spot with the track runners that they have, and Mike McDaniel as the head coach. Man, like, I think he would just thrive there, knowing how much that zone scheme is going to be profitable for him. Making one cut and then just going downhill. Like, that's what Dalvin Cook does best. But I lean towards James Cook because I know that he's actually going to be on the field. The Buffalo Bills are going to be good. Devin Singletary's out of the way. They did bring in Damian Harris. They could take the goal line work, but from everything that I've seen in training camp thus far, James Cook has been doing the most. He's been looked great. He's catching passes. He's running the ball. I'll take the RB1 of Buffalo, then maybe a chance that Dalvin goes to the Dolphins. Like, we don't know where he's going. If he ends up with the Jets, that's also interesting, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in the Jets versus the Buffalo Bills, where I know he's going to be toting the rock a lot. I like the upside of James Cook, and he's younger, less injury risk, I think. Less wear on the tires, less tread on the tires. Yeah, I lean James.
I thought it was only going to be me that's be like, man, I like James Cook a lot this year. You know what I'm saying? So, but that's good to see that, that I'm not the only one out there. That guy, his yards per catch is also going like towards like a first down. You know what I'm saying? So I think he could be an interesting player if he gets the proper usage this year. I want to ask you some players that going into drafts kind of have some questions about them this upcoming season, whether it's an injury to themselves or an injury to a teammate. Let's start with Jamar Chase. Normally, he's going as a top 3 pick, either 1-1, 1-2, or 1-3. Joe Burrow goes down. Jamar Chase ADP stay the same.
I mean, because he's that good. Like, I don't think it really matters who's throwing the ball. I think it's the system, right? Zach Taylor is going to get the ball out in space to his playmakers. It's going to be Jamar Chase. It's going to be T. Higgins. Joe Mixon is also going to be leaned on a lot. That's the player that I think is still underdrafted in fantasy leagues. I don't know why he's getting disrespected. RB15, maybe it's the legal stuff that's going on, but I think he should be clear to that. He just got the bag. Like, if I'm anyone worried about drafting the Bengals, I wouldn't be. The only person I would probably be a little hesitant on is maybe Joe Burrow, but I would just pivot to get another late round quarterback. Like, go get Justin Herbert. Like, you can get somebody later, but like, don't pass up on talent like Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, like, just because Joe Burrow's still working through something. Like, they're still going to get the ball.
What you doing with Jonathan Taylor?
Oh man, he's the one that I think is probably the biggest question mark right now, man. Like,
yo, let me tell you, I don't never think Le'Veon Bell said, "Listen, don't do that stupid shit no more. Go get the money." But with Taylor, I'm like, well, this guy's really taking a hard stand, and Jim Irsay is with the shits too. You know what I mean? So it's like, what are we going to do here?
Early.
Yeah. Like,
he's so like, he ain't going nowhere. I'm not taking any calls. Like, if he wants to show up, cool. Don't worry about it. We got the next man up. We all right here. Like, all right, well. Shit, he might be taking a Le'Veon stance. Like, there's a chance he could sit out for sure. And I think at this point for running back, like, you got to protect your own interests because you're not getting paid. So, like, why am I going to go out there? All right, cool. I might get fined, but, you know, if I can get a trade or force my way out of a situation and then protect my interests and my health, like, I get it from Jonathan Taylor's standpoint. From a fantasy standpoint, I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do. I mean, he's still a first round talent, but I'm just going to avoid this
with Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen's offense.
Oh my God.
But that's why I'm like, yo, we figure something out here because this could be magic.
So that's the thing. I got so before all this contract stuff came out, I did an FSGA expert draft, and I got Taylor 111 in a 14-team league. So I was like, cool with that. But now I'm like sweating bullets. I'm like, come on, man, you got to come back. Like, just at least report. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think he's eventually going to end up playing, especially if they have Anthony Richardson in there. There's going to be a lot of hype going to the Indianapolis Colts. And honestly, that division is theirs for the taking. Like, why can't they?
Winnable. People saying I don't think the Jaguars run away with that division.
I mean, Indianapolis can certainly compete when you got that head coach in there that's already shown what he can do to turn around an offense like the Eagles and make Jalen Hurts look like that dude, like MVP candidate. Man, I'm interested in it, man. But like, I'd be willing to take him. Like, if he falls 10 to 12, I'm taking him. I just have to do it. Like, I'll worry about that risk later. And if I gotta lean into some more running backs in the middle parts of the draft, I'll do that just to protect myself. But like, you can't. There's just so much opportunity with playing with Anthony Richardson, and what you've seen with Jalen Hurts and what he did with his running back, like, they're just going to eat. They're going to eat.
What are you doing with Calvin Ridley?
Drafting him.
Okay. As a wide receiver 1 or as a wide receiver 2?
I prefer wide receiver 2. So that means you're probably going to grab him in like the 4th, which I think is fair market value, right? Yeah. Like, based off of what we saw before his suspension, he was a wide receiver 1. Like, yeah, he was playing with Julio a little bit, but like, he started to emerge, and
he was becoming the guy.
Julio did take away some attention, but like, it was also the ascension of Ridley. Like, yo, this guy is really good, and everything that I've seen in training camp, I mean, he just looks like he's on like he's playing at another gear and another level. Like, so I think Zay Jones is probably going to take a step back. Christian Kirk is still probably going to be good as a wide receiver 2. But I think this is going to be Ridley. Ridley's got something to prove. He's super talented. He's playing with Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be a good offense with Doug Peterson again. I like Ridley in the 4th, and I wouldn't be scared to take him as a wide receiver 2.
How you handling Tua?
Drafting him too. Like, he's another late. So the thing about 12-team leagues is, like, you really don't have to spend up for a quarterback. Like, unless, in my opinion, unless you get those Konami code type guys like Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, I'm cool with just waiting. I'll wait in the back. I'll just stack up the RB and wide receiver depth throughout the first like 8 or 9 rounds. And then you have Tua waiting there round 9, round 10. And from what we saw, man, like, Tua was the number 6 quarterback, I think, from weeks 1 through 5 in fantasy points per game. And with that type of, I don't know, just that explosion when you got with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, like, why would you not want him as your QB1? Like, he's proven he could do it. It's just the health factor. So if you're worried about it, draft Anthony Richardson late, draft Deshaun Watson, you could be good with Kirk Cousins as a backup. Like there's so many options, Aaron Rodgers, so many quarterbacks after that RB or that QB 10, 11 range where he's going, where you can have some insurance if you want to draft Tua late.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I wasn't in on Tua last year.
I wasn't.
But then I had a team.
I didn't believe it.
where I had Tua on the bench, and I put him in the lineup, and the team started scoring points, and I was like, I'm in on Tua. You know what I'm saying? But then the concussions, they really do scare me. So I don't know how much I'm gonna be exposed to Tua this year, to be honest with you. But if I get to that spot, I probably wouldn't worry about it. So I think he's definitely draftable. And then obviously nobody's worried about Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle.
No,
those guys are still going pretty early as well. What are you doing with Alvin Kamara?
So he was before the 3-game suspension got announced. I was getting him for dirt cheap, man, like a 10th, 11th round, and I think the market's going to catch up a little bit now that they know what the missed games is going to look like. I'm still comfortable drafting him. Like they just signed Kareem Hunt, which I think that's more so because of the injury to who just got hurt.
Was it Kendra?
No, he got passed up on the depth chart, I think. Who just got hurt? Some backup running back got hurt that made them like, okay, we need some insurance behind Jamal. Once Kamara comes back, like, all right, he may not be the top running back that we saw before, getting, somewhere like 100 targets and still getting goal line work and all that. But I mean, as a RB2 flex, give me that. Like, I'll take that. I think he's on the decline slightly, but all the reports I've seen is that, he's being a leader in the locker room. He's ready to come back and prove that he's better than what he was last year, which was he tanked. Like he definitely was one of the worst draft picks in terms of his value in ADP. But there's a lot of talent there. They have a more steady quarterback at Derek Carr. Chris Olave is super explosive. So I wouldn't be scared to draft Kamara, assuming he's going around anywhere between that 8 to 10 range. But don't overdraft him, assuming you're going to get the Kamara that we knew from a few years ago.
Before we get you out of here, I got 2 more for you. Jameson Williams, 6-game suspension to start the season. Super duper talented, attached to a good offense.
Yeah.
Are you willing to wait on a player like that? Every time I try to do it, I end up just cutting the dude before he even get a chance to play.
Yeah, unless you got an IL plus stash type of thing, like I really don't draft injured players. Like I think you could probably get them, like week 3, week 4, whenever that suspension's about to come up, and then just play a little bit ahead, but don't invest in it for the whole season. Cause I always leave a spot open on my drafted team for that first waiver pickup for the first part of the year. Like you're never winning your league in the draft. Like that never happens. It's all about roster management. So give yourself the flexibility. I mean, Jameson Williams to me, like, I'm like, is he going to be a wide receiver 2? Probably not. Maybe he gives you some flex appeal once he comes back. I do like the Detroit Lions offense, but the only one I'm really invested in right now is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's going to cost you like a second, third round pick, second round pick, probably.
Yeah. Second round pick, St. Brown is definitely the deal. Finally, before we get you out of here, these 3 rookie wide receivers, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. I would rank them Smith and Jigba, then Quentin, then Jordan Addison. How would you rank them?
Ooh. I think I'm gonna go Addison,
1,
JSN, and then Johnston on the Chargers.
Okay.
The Johnson thing, like I don't know. I know this back to Twitter thing. They're obsessed with him because he's got speed and he's kind of like a poor man's Mike Williams. Problem is,
Mike Williams.
But they still got Mike Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Jordan Palmer not Jordan Palmer. Josh Palmer was straight too. Like, so, I think there's still mouths to feed. I think that's a long-term investment. You know what I'm saying? Mike Williams is probably going to move on. Keenan Allen's getting older, but I'd still draft him. Still a very underrated veteran wide receiver that Mike Evans still just get disrespected among draft boards, man. Like, I'll still draft both of them dudes. But yeah, so Johnson, I don't see him really playing into a role unless Mike Williams gets hurt. Addison, I like because I think he's going to step in as the wide receiver 2 once the season actually starts. Right now, the first depth chart came out. KJ Osborne was ahead of him. I don't make much of depth charts that come out in the first round of the preseason because Justin Jefferson was once not, wide receiver one. And then once they realized like, yo, he's that guy, like then he got elevated. So I think Jordan Addison's going to be that same guy. And I think that they can support 2 wide receivers in that offense. Kirk Cousins is going to be slinging the ball. And then JSN, though, the thing I want about JSN is like he's going to eat into somebody's production. Is it going to be Metcalf or Lockett? I haven't figured it out yet, but he's going to get the ball. Like he was the most highly recruited, or I'd say the highly touted out of that Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave class. So I'm like, he's going to get the ball, and the rapport is already shown with Geno Smith. So JSN's going to have wide receiver 3 viability ASAP. So he needs to be drafted for sure.
Remember the last game that JSN really played, because he only played 1 game last year, and he was injured, and then he was, protecting his draft stock. But the last game he played was that bowl game a couple years ago. You remember, son had 13 catches for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's crazy. Even in college football, that's crazy, son. Because it's not like they were playing.
That's beyond Jerry Rice numbers, man.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
They wasn't playing Tulane. They was playing Notre Dame. You know what I'm saying? Like these dudes gonna play in the NFL. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited to see him. But I agree. There is a couple of cats in front of him. You know what I'm saying? But I think those are young wide receivers right there is the move. So hey, good looking out, my brother. Definitely good chance to have a opportunity to talk with you in this format right here. And during the season, let's get a shot and do it again.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, you talk everything, man. I'm not into baseball as much, but once hoop season comes back, man, we definitely got to have some conversations. Your Knicks, they're looking like they could be all right, man. They're not gonna be as good as the Sixers, but the Sixers ain't gonna win nothing. They'll get kicked out of the second round, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks beat them in the second round.
Let me tell you something. Nick Nurse, right? I think Nick Nurse, listen, I think you're seeing the progression of getting Embiid. I would say Embiid and Simmons, but you're seeing the progression of, tanking, not playing. So now you get the losing out the system. And now Doc Rivers comes and be like, okay, you got to play. And now I think Nick Nurse comes and say, okay, now you got to be in shape. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I thought they were going to win the East last year.
I did too.
But it didn't happen. It didn't happen, But let me tell you something. I think the Knicks would have beat Boston last year, but the Knicks couldn't beat Miami. But I think the Knicks would have beat Boston. I think the Knicks were better than Boston last year. And this season with Boston, I think Kristaps makes them worse than better.
I think that the addition by subtraction of Marcus Smart is going to be so much more important to that team, because I think they just lost their defensive identity. And you can't do that going through the playoffs. Like, you'll be fine in the regular season. You'll figure it out. But, like, Kristaps, I think that they kind of reached a little bit far to try to, like, take this team to the next level. Like, I think that they mess up the chemistry by doing that, to be honest. Like, I'm out on Boston. But the Bucks are still there. Like, there's just so many. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the Knicks, I feel like, have a chance to do something, because I feel like the East is just going to be open. Like,
well,
even
if Damian Lillard ends up on Miami, then we can all forget about it.
Yeah. It don't matter who else is even on. I don't care if they don't have any depth in the bench. You got Jimmy and Dame and Bam. Like, it's a wrap.
As a native Philadelphian, are you a Sixer fan?
Yeah, all day.
Okay. Would you trade Tyrese Maxey for Damian Lillard?
If you're trying to win a championship with Embiid, yes. If you're trying to be smart about the long-term value of your franchise, no, because Dame's getting older. Dame's too old. Maxey's super young. We haven't seen anywhere near close to his ceiling yet. He could be a 24, 5-5 guy if he actually has the ball in his hands without James Harden in the way. So if you're trying to win, take it. Do the deal. Get it done. Bring a championship home to Philly, because I think that's the one thing about the Sixers that I've been more pissed off about, is that they've just been wasting quality MVP years out of Joel Embiid. And it's only going to be a matter of time before he's like, all right, y'all ain't serious about this. I want out. Or they're just going to be one of those teams that always makes the playoffs and always gets kicked out very early. You get a shitty draft pick, and then you're back to this the
process. You back in the process.
You're right. It's a whole other process again. Exactly.
Same group, Josh Harris group, the same groups that own the Washington Commanders now. So it's going to be interesting to see if they asset managed. To see if they asset managed in football the same way they asset managed in the NBA. All right, good looking out, brother. You know what I'm saying? Definitely appreciate your time. That's my man Dan Titus, Yahoo Fantasy. I'm Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. We are out.